I was born in Blackall, raised in Colomulla, lost my parents in 83. I was 15. I moved to Mildura, met a partner, thought Auntie was going to take over. Lost grandmother a week before she was born. Sort of been on my own since 15, violent relationship. I had one child and then another one, but the other one was born in Queensland. The other three were born in Queensland. I got back with the ex, ended up domestic violence. I had good parents. I mean, they had their ups and downs, but I grew up outside, riding bikes, going for walks, just being a typical child. I had lots of dreams. You can pray and hope you go that way, but there's always a hiccup along the road which turns you off your dream. Kids can't watch TV in the lounge room because the connection's broken, and I've been told I have to pay for it to get fixed, which at the moment I can't afford. It costs, $350 for a TV man to come out? I can't afford that just yet. Housing Commission said I have to pay for it. The rooms are cold, so we all huddle around in the laundry because there's another TV connection in the laundry where we all sit around and watch TV and huddle in blankets and have a blow eater. It's ridiculous, really. Summer's coming and I don't know, I have got an air conditioning, but I don't know whether it works. I've turned it on, the remote's green, but there's no cool air or anything coming out of it. I had the Housing Commission lady check it. She reckons that it's not on, it needs to be fixed. I have to pay for it myself, but first I have to get a letter off my doctor to say that I suffer from high blood pressure, heart problems, asthma, sugar diabetes. At the moment, I can't afford that. I can't afford to get it fixed. But yet, where's all our rent money going? Where's our rent money going? I thought that was towards maintenance as well. If I need to go to the doctors, and I walk to town. If I need to get somewhere, I walk. With calluses on my feet, if my foot was bleeding, I don't care, I'd walk just to get to where I've got to go to. If there's no transport to come back, if I haven't got enough for a taxi, which costs $15, I walk back home. That's it. Like I say, I get an income from Centrelink. It's usually, I think, about $870. Out of that comes my rent, my loan payments, my furniture payments. And by the time I get to the bank, there's $226 in there. That's with Centrelink. That's my pension payment. The kids' payment is a little bit more. Theirs is probably about $900. With that, it's gone to food and whatever essentials they need, or which child needs shoes or school clothes, and I mean the school shirts are $35 a hit as it is. But it's a struggle because I mean it sounds like a lot of money, but by the time you pay everything out, you're lucky to make it through the fortnight until your next pay. Life's like rolling a dice. It's, you roll it, you hope you get a big one, but then again it could just go flop back down to number one.
I was born in Melbourne, but I'm from across Australia because my dad, I never had a mum, so it was always just me, my dad and my brother. And every 18 months, my dad packed up and moved. So I was never in one spot long enough. All right, so I'm privately renting and I'm in a 3-bedroom plus study old weatherboard home. The landlord's not 100% cooperative to maintain it. She will do the minimal that she can. It is really, really cold. There's no installation in the walls, and it's all floorboards. The only source I've got is an open fireplace, and if I can't afford the wood, I've got no heating. If I've got excess money to buy the wood being so expensive, sometimes I'll have it 2 or 3 days out of the week. By the time I'm asleep in bed and the fire goes out, it's really, really, really back to cold. With a baby monitor I have, one of the rooms have registered at -4. But at the end of the day, it is a roof over my kid's head. I felt like I had to take the property that I'm in now, even though I wasn't 100% happy with it, because the waiting list for housing was phenomenal. But as a mum, you make do and you make the most of it, because they say home's what you make it. I get, give or take, for the full fortnight, just under about $1,400-1,500. That's generally your rent, your power, your water. So you've got the living down and your food, and probably the clothing to make sure the kids are clothed and stuff like that. It becomes very, very hard if something unexpected is thrown in. Just yesterday, picked one of my middle children up from school, and she ended up having a temperature of 39.9. I managed to get her temperature down, but that was on the basis of lending some Panadol from a friend because I hadn't got any, because it's something that just came up immediately. And of course, between payday to payday, there's nothing in between. She's now on antibiotics, and I had to get her medication, which just cost me just under $50, that I realistically don't have between payday to payday. And to someone like me, $50 is like $1 million. It's got to stretch. I do have a car, but it's not the most reliable car. So if it breaks down, I got to wait till I got the funds to fix it, or I can get friends to fix it for me. And until that happens, I've got to walk. But then also it comes down to whether I've got money for fuel for it for the week too, because it won't go without fuel. And, once everything's paid, if I don't have fuel, so I decide whether some places are worth walking rather than driving. School pickup, be home in time. Now, most times that I've got to walk, I've actually got to leave my home at 2:30 to collect my daughter in time. And then when I walk back, by the time I get back, I'm just walking up my driveway as my son's getting off the school bus. 90% of the time, obviously, I have at least one child at home with me, so 99% of the time it takes me that half an hour or so to walk into town, and then I've got to be able to make sure what I'm going to get I can carry home, because I just can't afford taxis. I actually feel pretty isolated in the fact that my 4 walls of my house are actually strangely becoming my best friend.
I'm a single mum of 2 kids. I've lived in Mildura for 3 years. Both of my children go to childcare. My oldest goes to kindergarten 2 days a week and childcare 2 days a week, and my youngest goes 4 days a week at daycare. My memories of childhood aren't that great. I grew up in a domestic violent home, so things weren't great. My dad and I clash a lot, so basically all my memories are bad from my childhood. So Nova has she has hearing problems and breathing problems. When she was 9 months old, we were told she had bulging eardrums. We'd been seeing a hearing specialist here at the hospital since she was 6 weeks old, and they had said, she needs to go see a specialist. And they offered us the one in Mildura, which was going to take 2 years on a waiting list to be able to see her. And they said by then she could be legally deaf and they can't fix hearing that's not there. So we were given the option to then travel out of state to go see the specialist in Adelaide, who we weren't aware was a private specialist. So to fund it, a lot of the time I've had to get out payday loans. So I've taken out 3 payday loans that I'm still paying off. And so that's a big chunk of sort of money that comes out of my income every fortnight. A payday loan is an easy loan that has no credit check that you can get sort of on the spot, and they take a certain amount of money out every fortnight. I was not aware of the interest that is on these loans. It is intense. So I had a $2,000 payday loan and I end up paying back $5,000. So it's a big amount that's on interest. I didn't understand interest at the time and sort of just went, yep, I need the money, got it, everything was all good. And then I was looking into the stats later on and I went, oh my goodness, like this is going to take me 3 years to pay back. So for me to be able to pay for food was hard. So I had to budget on probably around $100 a fortnight for food for 2 adults and 2 children, plus 2 dogs. So I was constantly like, I couldn't put fuel in my car. My parents had to fill up my car every fortnight because I couldn't pay it. There was times when I had to take out money out of my accounts so that way the payday loan couldn't come out because we wouldn't have been able to afford to live. It definitely destroyed me mentally. It took a long time for me to pick myself back up and sort of get myself back to where I am now, where I'm sort of at a stable level and I'm not doing too bad at the moment. There was times I'd broken down from having no fuel in my car, times I'd have to walk across town just to go to the grocery shop, just to get food for the kids to go to daycare the next day. Times I couldn't pay daycare bills because I had to get food, just things like that. I feel like if I didn't grow up the way I did, I would have been more interested in school. I would have had more support through my schooling and I probably would have been able to, go to uni straight after year 12. I probably wouldn't have gotten involved in drugs and try to, run away from home at 15. I would have been more wanting to be involved with my schooling rather than trying to get away from everything and trying to be my own person at 15. I feel like I would probably be in a more stable, probably more financial situation at 20 than what I am now.
I'm originally from Geelong. I'm a mother of 6, a grandmother of 7. No, there's just myself, my husband and my youngest daughter. Due to my parents splitting and neither one of them wanted to take responsibility, I became homeless. That's when I was in Geelong at that stage, yeah. It was very hard for a young girl. At night so that I was safely walking and during the day I'd try and find safe places to sleep. Being homeless from 13 to 21 and be able to supply food and sanitary stuff, I would have to steal to make ends meet for myself. Come to 21, I'd already started to say, right, I might as well be a career criminal, nothing better, nothing. I've met up with a fella and I fell pregnant and it was like a gift that I thought I'd never have and that just clicked. It was something I thought I didn't want my child to go through, what I went through, and I just wanted to give him as much as I could. One Christmas, I took the kids out of school a month before the actual Christmas yeehaw was started so that they didn't realise that we were coming up to Christmas Day because we could not afford it. So you're really just living on a wing and a prayer. You're trying to pay your rent, your utilities like everybody else. What food you bring in is what you can afford. Food seems to be the last thing on the list, so long as you've got a roof over your head. The ministry housing list was just so long and we were never going to get on it. We moved from, say, paying $60 rent a week in an education home to Hoppers Crossing on the chance that, there was a job supposed to be in Melton and it went up to $150. And it was such a jump that we tried to keep in that house as long as we could. It ended up that my children had to go into foster care because we actually ended up living in a car, me and my husband. So that was really heartbreaking. Our water is not drinkable. We can use it for showers, we can use it for washing, but you can't use it for cooking or drinking. So we have to count on rainwater when it rains, or the council actually ship in a little trailer with fresh water in it, and that gets exchanged once a week. Because we're forever buying water, plastic containers full of water in the house. In summer, we go through like 24 bottles a day of the plastic bottles, 600ml bottles a day, just trying to keep our fluids up. Yeah, it's become quite expensive actually. Transport is non-existent except for a Thursday and Friday, and that's for an hour and a half in town, and then you're out again. There's no other transport, unless you've got a car. If I had to come into town, I had to make sure that I had fuel in the car, that the car was registered. And if it was an appointment with, say, for argument's sake, Centrelink or with a job network, and you couldn't make those arrangements, then you had to count on a neighbour if they were lucky enough to be able to help you themselves. And then to be late for that appointment, whatever the appointment was, you could be cancelled or whatever they feel like doing.